Do you know what still haunts me after all these centuries? It isn't the persecution I faced. It isn't the exile from my beloved Cordoba. Not even watching my brother David drown in the Indian Ocean while carrying our family's fortune. What haunts me is a single question. A question asked by a man whose name history has forgotten, but whose words echo through time like thunder in an empty valley. Are you truly happy, Rambam? He asked me this one night in Cairo, around the year 1185. By then, I was already known as the greatest physician of my age. My legal code, the Mishneh Torah, was reshaping Jewish law. Kings and peasants alike sought my counsel. And yet, this simple merchant with dust on his clothes and exhaustion in his eyes saw something I had been hiding from myself. You see, this merchant had everything a man of his time could want. Thriving trade routes from Spain to Egypt, properties in 3 cities, a family that lacked nothing. But he couldn't sleep. He couldn't find peace. He worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, chasing something he couldn't name. Sound familiar? And when he looked at me that night, truly looked at me, he said something that stopped my heart. Rabbi, you have all the wisdom in the world, but your eyes look just as tired as mine. That was when I realized something that would change not only his life, but mine forever. We had both fallen into the same trap. The trap that imprisons every man who confuses success with happiness, who believes that more equals better, who thinks that if he works a little harder, accumulates a little more, achieves just a little further, then finally he will be happy. But here's the truth that night revealed to me. Happiness is not the reward for success. Happiness is the foundation of success. And most men, even successful men, especially successful men, get this completely backward. What I'm about to share with you changed everything for that merchant. It transformed the way I practiced medicine, the way I wrote my laws, the way I lived my final years. This isn't about religion. This is about reality, about laws as fixed as gravity, as predictable as the sunrise. Laws our ancestors once knew, but we've forgotten. Laws that can transform your life if you have the courage to listen. Are you ready to hear what I told that merchant on the night that changed both our lives forever? Let me take you back to that night in Cairo. Picture this. It's past midnight. The markets are silent. Even the stray dogs have found their rest. But not this merchant. His name was Yusuf Batuta, not the famous traveler, just a textile merchant who built an empire selling silk and spices across the Mediterranean. He climbs the stone steps to my house, his hands trembling, not from cold, but from despair. Rabbi, he whispers, I need to ask you something, but I'm afraid of the answer. I invite him into my study. The candlelight flickers across his face, and I see something I recognize, because I had seen it in my own mirror, the face of a man who has everything and nothing. Ask, I tell him. He takes a deep breath, then another. Finally, what is happiness, truly? Not the word, the thing itself, because I've tried everything. Now, you must understand, in my time, happiness wasn't discussed the way it is today. Men didn't go to doctors complaining of emptiness. They came with broken bones, with fevers, with wounds. But this man's wound was deeper. Every morning I wake up with a list, he continued, contracts to sign, ships to load, profits to count, and I tell myself, today I will feel satisfied. Today I will feel enough. His voice faltered. But the list never ends. The ships keep coming. The gold keeps piling up, and I keep feeling empty. I finished for him. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and in that moment I saw every man reading these words, every man hearing this story. Because you know this feeling, don't you? You've built something. Maybe not ships and silk, but something. A career, a portfolio, a reputation, a lifestyle. And yet, Late at night, when the house is silent and your accomplishments are counted, you feel the same emptiness this merchant felt. The same emptiness I felt. That was when I realized something that would reshape everything I thought I knew about human flourishing. We were not designed for endless accumulation. We were designed for balance. But here's what most men don't understand about balance. It's not about working less. It's not about wanting less. It's not about a Buddhist renunciation of the world. True balance, the balance I called the middle path in the Mishneh Torah, is something far more sophisticated. It's about understanding the difference between prosperity and obsession, between building and hoarding, between success and slavery. The merchant leaned forward. "Show me," he said. And what I showed him that night, what I'm about to show you, comes from Hilchot Deot, the laws of character development, ancient wisdom that addresses the most modern of problems, how to prosper in the world without losing your soul to the world, how to accumulate wealth without letting wealth accumulate you, how to achieve success without surrendering your peace. This isn't theory, this is practice. This is a map for men who want to build something meaningful without sacrificing everything meaningful in the process. Are you ready to learn what I taught him? Because what happened next will challenge everything you believe about success, happiness, and what it really means to live well. "Show me your gold," I said to the merchant. He looked confused. "My gold? Rabbi, I didn't bring any gold." "No," I replied. "Show me your golden trap." I walked to my window and pointed toward the harbor where his ships were anchored under the moonlight. Those ships, that warehouse, that reputation you built across 3 continents, show me how they've imprisoned you. His face went pale. "You feel it, don't you?" I continued. "The weight, not of gold, but of golden chains." Here's what I learned that night, and what every successful man must understand. Success creates its own prison. The more you build, the more you have to maintain. The more you own, the more owns you. The higher you climb, the farther you can fall. And at some point in that process, you stop living your life and start serving your success. "Tell me about your last vacation," I said. "Vacation," he laughed bitterly. "Rabbi, I haven't taken a full day off in 3 years. There's always another deal, another opportunity, another crisis. Tell me about your family." His shoulders sank. "My wife, she stopped asking me to come to bed before midnight. My children, they stopped waiting for me at their celebrations." "Tell me about your health." He touched his chest unconsciously. "Heart palpitations, stomach issues. I can't sleep without wine." "And your joy?" Silence. A long, heavy silence. "Do you recognize this man? Because he is like every man who thought the next achievement would finally bring satisfaction. The next promotion would bring security. The next investment would bring peace. The next milestone would bring happiness. But here's the cruel math of the golden trap. The more successful you are at the wrong thing, the farther you are from the right thing. In the Mishneh Torah, I wrote about this principle in the laws of human dispositions. We call it the trap of extremes. Most men swing between 2 destructive extremes, the extreme of endless ambition, where nothing is ever enough, and the extreme of defeat, when they give up and settle for mediocrity. But both extremes lead to the same place: misery. The ambitious man becomes a slave to his ambitions. The defeated man becomes a slave to his fears. Neither finds peace, neither finds true prosperity, neither finds happiness. "So what's the answer?" the merchant asked, desperation in his voice. "To give it all up, to become a monk, to live in poverty?" "No," I said. "That's just another extreme, another trap." I opened my copy of the Mishneh Torah to the laws of human dispositions, chapter 1, verse 3. "The straight path is the central attribute of every trait. This is the way of the wise." There is a third way, I told him. A way that allows you to prosper without being possessed by prosperity, to succeed without being enslaved by success, to accumulate without being accumulated. His eyes lit up for the first time that night. This is the middle path, not the golden trap of infinitely more, not the poverty trap of artificially less, but the wisdom of enough. I paused, letting it sink into his mind. Enough success to flourish, enough rest to recover, enough ambition to grow, enough contentment to enjoy. But here's what most men don't realize about the middle path. It isn't about finding some perfect mathematical balance. It's about understanding the deeper principle that makes all balance possible. And that principle, the secret I learned after years of treating kings and beggars, will transform the way you think about everything. Let me show you what I showed him. I walked to my shelf and picked up a small mirror, the kind I used for medical examinations. Look at yourself, I told the merchant. What do you see? He stared at his reflection. I see a tired man, a worried man. Look deeper. What do you see in your eyes? He gazed longer. I see fear. Fear of what? Fear of doing it all wrong, of wasting my life, of happiness being somewhere else, in something else, in someone else. I placed the mirror on the floor. That fear, I said, is built on the first great lie about happiness. Here is the lie that destroys most men. Happiness is something you earn, something you achieve, something you receive as a reward for living rightly. But that is completely backward. In the Mishneh Torah, in the laws of human dispositions, I discovered something that changed everything. Happiness is not the destination, it is the vehicle. Let me explain. You were taught the sequence is work hard, achieve success, gain happiness, but the real sequence is find contentment, work with purpose, create lasting success. You mean I should just be happy with what I have? The merchant asked. No, I replied. I mean you should understand what happiness really is. Lou, most men think happiness is a feeling, a state of mind, an emotional high that comes and goes with circumstances. But that's not happiness. That's pleasure. That's excitement. That's temporary satisfaction. True happiness, what we call simcha in Hebrew, is something completely different. It's a way of being in the world, a fundamental orientation to life, a deep knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do, becoming exactly who you need to become. But how can I be happy if I'm not where I want to be? He asked. Perfect question. Tell me, I said, where do you want to be? I want to be successful. You are successful. I want to be rich. You are rich. I want to be secure. And will you ever be secure enough? Will there ever be enough gold in your vaults, enough ships in your fleet, enough properties in your name to finally, definitively, permanently protect you from every possible future? He fell silent for a long moment. No, he whispered. Then you see the problem. You are chasing something that doesn't exist. Perfect security, perfect success, perfect certainty about the future. I opened to another passage in the Mishneh Torah. One should not be overly elated, nor sad or sorrowful, but should be joyful at all times, with a friendly countenance. Notice, I told him, it doesn't say, be happy when things go well. It says, be happy at all times. But how is that possible? Because true happiness doesn't depend on circumstances. It depends on something far more reliable. I paused, watching understanding begin to dawn in his eyes. Happiness depends on alignment. Alignment with what? With reality, with purpose, with the natural order of a well-lived life. You see, when you are aligned with your true purpose, not the purpose society told you to have, not the purpose your fear chose for you, but your real purpose, then you can be happy no matter the circumstances. When you are building something meaningful, you can be happy even when it's hard. When you are growing towards something worthy, you can be happy even when you're not there yet. When you are contributing something valuable, you can be happy even when you're not getting everything you want. This is the first truth about happiness. It is not the prize at the end of the race. It is the energy that powers the race itself. But how do you find that alignment? How do you discover that deeper happiness? That is what I showed him next. "Stand up," I told the merchant. He looked confused, but he stood. "Now lean as far to the right as you can without falling." He leaned until he almost lost his balance. "How do you feel?" "Unstable, uncomfortable, like I'm about to fall." "Now lean as far to the left as you can." Same result. "Now stand perfectly upright, centered, balanced." His posture relaxed. His breathing deepened. "This," I said, "is the middle path, not a compromise between extremes, the place of greatest strength." You see, most men think the middle path means mediocrity. They think it means giving up ambition, settling for less, choosing the safe middle ground. That's completely wrong. The middle path is not the weak position between two strong ones. It is the strongest position possible. Let me show you what I mean. In archery, what happens if you pull the string too little? The arrow falls short. What happens if you pull too much? The string snaps. But when you find the exact tension, not too little, not too much, but precisely what is needed, that's when the arrow flies straight to its target. This is the middle path applied to success. Too little ambition, and you'll never build anything meaningful. Too much ambition, and you destroy yourself in the pursuit. But the right amount of ambition, ambition aligned with wisdom, balanced with contentment, measured by purpose and not ego, that's when you achieve things that last. "Give me an example," the merchant said. "Your business," I replied. "Right now you work 18 hours a day. That's the extreme of excess. If you work 2 hours a day, that would be the extreme of laziness. But what if you work 10 focused hours instead of 18 scattered ones?" His eyes widened. "You'd accomplish more in those 10 hours than in 18, because you'd be working with strength instead of exhaustion, with clarity instead of desperation, with strategy instead of panic." I opened the Mishneh Torah again. This is the way of the wise. They choose the middle trait for every quality, the trait equally distant from each extreme. "But it's not just about business," I continued. "It's about everything. Food, not starvation, not gluttony, but nourishment. Exercise, not weakness, not injury, but strength. Relationships, not isolation, not codependence, but healthy connection. Money, not poverty, not obsession, but sufficiency and generosity. Work, not laziness, not work addiction, but productive contribution." The middle path, I explained, isn't about finding the mathematical center between two extremes. It's about finding the point of greatest power and stability. Itu. A tree doesn't grow leaning to one side or the other. It grows straight, with deep roots reaching for the light. Water doesn't flow frantically or stagnantly. It flows in its natural course, steady and determined. That's how a man must live. Not swinging between extremes of ambition and defeat, excess and deprivation, work and laziness, but finding his natural rhythm, his sustainable rhythm, his authentic path. "But how do I know where my middle is?" the merchant asked. "By listening to something you've been ignoring," I said. "What's that?" "Your body, your mind, your spirit. They've been trying to tell you for years. When you're off the middle path, your body rebels with stress, exhaustion, and sickness. When you're off the middle path, your mind rebels with anxiety, obsession, and confusion. When you're off the middle path, your spirit rebels with emptiness, lack of meaning, and despair. But when you find your middle path, everything changes. Your body becomes your ally instead of your burden. Your mind becomes clear instead of chaotic. Your spirit becomes full of purpose instead of empty. That's what I mean by alignment, and that's what transforms everything else. When was the last time you felt truly rested? I asked the merchant. He thought for a long moment. I can't remember. When was the last time you ate without thinking about business? Another pause. Months ago, maybe longer. When was the last time you woke up excited for the day instead of dreading it? His shoulders dropped. Years. Your body has been trying to tell you something, I said, but you stopped listening. As a physician, I learned something most men ignore to their own ruin. Your body is wiser than your ambition. Your body knows when you push too far. Your ambition tells you to push further. Your body knows when you need rest. Your ambition tells you rest is for the weak. Your body knows when you're out of balance. Your ambition tells you balance is for men who don't want success badly enough. But here's the truth that will save your life. Your body is not your enemy. It is your most honest counselor. In the Mishneh Torah, in the laws of human dispositions, I wrote, maintaining a healthy and sound body is among the ways of God. It is a duty to avoid what harms the body and pursue what benefits it. This is not just medical advice. It is spiritual wisdom, because you cannot serve your greater purpose with a broken body. You cannot build lasting success with failing health. You cannot find true happiness while systematically destroying the vessel that carries your life. But if I slow down, the merchant protested, my competitors will get ahead. Really? I challenged. How is your current pace working out? Are you at your best when you're exhausted? Are you making your wisest decisions when you're stressed? Are you building your strongest relationships when you're always rushing? He fell silent. Let me tell you about another merchant I knew, I continued, a man who built the largest spice trading empire in Egypt. Do you know his secret? What? He slept 8 hours every night, ate 3 full meals every day, took 1 full day of rest each week, exercised his body with the same dedication he exercised his mind. The merchant looked skeptical. His competitors thought he was lazy. They worked longer hours, skipped meals, and sacrificed sleep. And where are they now? Dead from heart attacks, ruined by poor decisions made in exhaustion, abandoned by families, tired of competing with their obsessions. And the merchant who rested, still alive, still building, still joyful. His empire not only survived, it thrived. That is what your body is trying to tell you. When you ignore your physical needs for the sake of ambition, you don't become more successful, you become less successful. When you sacrifice health for wealth, you end up with neither. When you push past your natural limits, you don't transcend them, you crash against them. But how do I know what my body needs? He asked. It's simpler than you think. Your body speaks a clear language, energy or exhaustion, strength or weakness, clarity or confusion, peace or agitation, health or sickness. When you live in alignment with your true nature, your body gives you energy, strength, clarity, peace, and health. When you live against your nature, your body warns you with exhaustion, weakness, confusion, agitation, and illness. I leaned forward. Now, what is your body telling you? He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. It's telling me I'm tired. Deeply, deeply tired. Not just sleepy. Tired to the bone. Tired to the soul. And what do you think it needs? Rest, real rest. Not just sleep, but peace. Then that is your first step toward the middle path. Not working less, but working with strength instead of exhaustion. This is where real change begins. Not with your mind making better plans, but with your body receiving what it needs to carry those plans out. "Let me tell you about the richest man I ever met," I said to the merchant. "Richer than the Sultan?" "Yes, richer than kings, richer than any merchant who ever lived." His eyes lit up with curiosity. Where was his palace? He had no palace. His gold? He had no gold. Then how was he rich? Listen to his story, and you'll understand wealth in a way that will change everything. I met this man outside the great mosque of Cairo. He was sitting on the steps, his clothes patched and worn, his sandals tied together with rope. In front of him was a small wooden bowl with a few copper coins. I was rushing between patients, my mind full of diagnoses and treatments, when something made me stop. It wasn't what he was doing, it was what he wasn't doing. He wasn't begging desperately. He didn't look anxious or ashamed. He wasn't frantically trying to draw people's attention. He was peaceful, not resigned, not defeated, peaceful. I approached him. "Are you hungry?" I asked. He smiled, and it was the most genuine smile I had seen in months. "Rabbi," he said. Somehow he recognized me. "I ate today. I have a place to sleep tonight. I have clothes to keep me warm. What more could a man need?" "What more?" I repeated, thinking of all my wealthy patients with their endless complaints and anxieties. "I have no business that keeps me awake at night," he went on. "No employees depending on me for their livelihood. No competitor threatening my security. No investment to worry about." "But don't you want more?" "More of what?" I gestured vaguely. "More everything. A house, a family, success, status." He chuckled softly. "Rabbi, let me ask you something. Do you see that merchant there?" I looked where he pointed. A well-dressed man hurried by, his face tense with worry, his hands clutching a leather bag. He has a house. Does he enjoy it? Or is he always thinking about the mortgage? He has a family. Does he treasure them, or is he always working to provide for them? He has success. Does it bring him peace, or more problems to solve? I watched the merchant disappear into the crowd, and something struck me deeply. You're saying he's poorer than you. I'm saying wealth is not what you have. It's how you relate to what you have. Explain. That merchant is enslaved by his possessions. They own him more than he owns them. He works for his house. The house doesn't work for him. He serves his business. The business doesn't serve him. The beggar picked up one of the copper coins from his bowl. This coin represents my wealth today. It will buy me food, shelter, and basic needs. When I spend it, I'll be grateful. When it's gone, I won't despair. Tomorrow, God willing, another will come. He looked at me with eyes clearer than those of any scholar I had ever known. But that merchant's coins represent his fear. Fear of losing them. Fear of not having enough. Fear of what will happen if they stop coming. So you're saying poverty is freedom? No, he said firmly. I'm saying contentment is wealth. And you can be content with much or with little. But you can only be rich, truly rich, when your peace does not depend on your possessions. I stood there for a long moment, understanding washing over me. This man had discovered the secret that escapes most of the successful. Enough is a decision, not a number. Security is an inner state, not an external condition. Wealth is a way of being, not a way of having. Do you understand now? I asked the merchant that night. Why this beggar was the richest man I ever knew? The merchant was silent for a long time after I told him about the rich beggar. Finally, he spoke. But Rabbi, I can't just stop working. I have responsibilities. People depend on me. Obligations. I'm not suggesting you stop working, I replied. I'm suggesting you learn how to work. I know how to work. I've worked all my life. No, I said gently. You know how to stay busy. That's different. Let me show you what I mean. In the Torah, the very foundation of creation includes something revolutionary. Rest. Not because God was tired, but because rest is part of the natural order of productivity. Work 6 days, rest 1 day. Not as a reward for work, as preparation for work, not as an interruption of productivity, as the foundation of productivity. But 1 day a week won't solve my problems, the merchant protested. You're thinking about it backwards, I explained. You think rest is what you do when work is finished, but work is never finished. There will always be another deal, another crisis, another opportunity. I opened again to the laws of human dispositions. A person should divide his time into 3 parts. 1/3 for Torah study, 1/3 for earning a livelihood, and 1/3 for eating, drinking, sleeping, and other necessary activities. Notice, I told him, it doesn't say work until you're done and then rest. It says structure your life so work has its rightful place. The merchant looked skeptical. 1/3 for earning a living? That's only 8 hours a day. And how many hours are you working now? 18, sometimes 20. And how's that working out for you? He stayed silent. Let me tell you what I've learned in my years as a physician, I continued. The men who work the longest hours are rarely the most productive. They're usually the most scattered, the most reactive, the most prone to mistakes. Why? Because they work out of exhaustion instead of strength, out of anxiety instead of clarity, out of compulsion instead of purpose. Here's what most men don't understand about rest. Rest is not the absence of work. It is the presence of restoration. True rest doesn't mean lying on the couch doing nothing. It means engaging in activities that restore your energy instead of draining it. For some men, rest is physical activity completely different from their daily labor. For others, rest is intellectual stimulation unrelated to business concerns. For others, rest is spiritual practice, connecting with something greater than their immediate problems. Give me an example, the merchant asked. You work with numbers, negotiations, logistics. Your rest might be gardening with your hands, creating something beautiful instead of something profitable, being with your family with no other purpose than to enjoy their company. But that time could be used for more business. And that time for more business could be used for even more business, until your whole life is consumed by business and no one is left to enjoy what the business created. I leaned forward. Let me ask you something. What's the point of building a successful life if you don't have a life to live successfully? He had no answer. Ancient wisdom teaches us that rest is not a luxury. It is a necessity, not just for your body, but for your mind and spirit. Because when you rest properly, you return to work with a new perspective on old problems, fresh ideas for stagnant situations, renewed energy for hard tasks, clearer judgment for important decisions, more patience for dealing with difficult people, a deeper appreciation for meaningful work. But how do I start? He asked. I have so many commitments. Start small, start now, start with 1 hour. 1 hour? 1 hour a day where you do something that restores you instead of drains you. Something that connects you to who you are, not just what you do. This is the beginning of balance, not perfect balance, just better balance, not overnight transformation, just 1 hour of restoration each day. Let me tell you about the day I almost lost everything, I said to the merchant. His attention sharpened. It was 1177. I was 39 years old. My legal code was nearly finished. My medical practice was thriving. I had status, respect, and financial security. What happened? My brother David drowned. I paused, feeling the old grief stir within me. David wasn't just my brother. He was my closest friend, my business partner, my financial support. While I studied and wrote, he traveled and traded. His ventures funded my academic work. The merchant leaned in. When word came that his ship had sunk in the Indian Ocean, I didn't just lose a brother. I lost my livelihood, my security, my plans for the future. For months, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus on my studies. I sat in my library, surrounded by all my books and writings, and thought, what's the point of any of this? How did you survive? Barely. But something happened that changed everything. I walked to the window, looking out at the harbor where ships came and went with their precious cargo. One morning, I was sitting in despair when a student came to me with a question about a legal matter. A simple question on business ethics, and as I began to explain the law, something shifted inside me. What? I realized my brother hadn't only died, he had lived. And the work we had built together, my studies, my writings, my service to the community, that work was still alive. But you still lost everything. No, I thought I had lost everything, but what I lost were things, circumstances, external supports. I had not lost myself. I had not lost my purpose. I had not lost my ability to contribute. The merchant listened closely. That's when I discovered the secret of contentment, I continued. It's not about having enough. It's about being enough. What do you mean? Most men tie their contentment to circumstances. When business is good, they're satisfied. When business is bad, they're miserable. When they feel secure, they're at peace. When they face uncertainty, they're anxious. That sounds natural. It sounds natural, but it's actually a choice, a habit, a way of thinking that can be changed. I opened my personal journal and read a line I had written years before. True contentment does not come from having what you want, but from understanding what you truly need. David's death taught me something profound, I said. I thought I needed his financial support to do my work, but what I really needed was the commitment to do my work regardless of circumstances. I thought I needed security to find peace, but what I really needed was faith to find peace in the midst of uncertainty. I thought I needed external success to feel valuable, but what I really needed was the recognition that my value comes from my character, not from my circumstances. The merchant sat in silence for a long moment. So contentment is just accepting whatever happens? No, I answered firmly. Contentment is not passive acceptance. It is active appreciation. Explain. Indeed, passive acceptance says, I can't change anything, so I'll just endure whatever comes. Active appreciation says, in every circumstance, there is something I can learn, something I can contribute, something I can become. When I lost David, I could have accepted the circumstances passively, just endured the loss and lived in bitterness. Instead, I chose active appreciation. I appreciated the years we shared. I appreciated the lessons his death taught me. I appreciated the chance to discover inner resources I never knew I had. This is the secret of contentment, finding the gift in every circumstance, the opportunity in every challenge, the growth in every loss. Not because the loss is good, but because you are resourceful enough to create something good out of the loss. Tell me about your family, I said to the merchant. His face changed. The business-like confidence faded, replaced by something softer, sadder. I have a wife, Fatima. We've been married 15 years, 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Do they know who you are? The question hit him like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean, if your children had to describe their father to a stranger, what would they say? He's the man who works all the time. He's the man who's always worried about business. Or would they say something else? He sat silently for a long time. They'd say, I'm the man who provides for them, he finally answered. But are you present for them? I don't understand the difference. Providing is what you do. Presence is who you are. Providing is meeting their needs. Presence is knowing their hearts. I leaned back in my chair. Let me tell you about a conversation I once had with my own son, Abraham. Abraham was about 12 at the time. I was working on a particularly complex section of the Mishneh Torah, buried in legal arguments and academic debates. One night he came into my study and stood at the door saying nothing. "What is it, my son?" I asked, without looking up from my books. "Nothing, Papa." But he didn't leave. He just stood there. Finally, I looked up. "Abraham, what do you need?" And he said something that forever changed my understanding of fatherhood. The merchant leaned forward. He said, "I don't need anything, Papa. I just wanted to be with you." I paused, remembering that moment. There was my son asking for the one thing I thought I didn't have time to give. Not money, not lessons, not even guidance, just me. "What did you do?" I closed my books. I set aside my work, and I said, "Then come, let's be together." We went walking through the markets. We talked about his friends, his interests, his dreams. Nothing deep, nothing that would improve my reputation as a scholar or increase my income. But as we walked, I realized something that revolutionized my understanding of success. What? The most important work I would ever do was not in my books or my medical practice. It was in that conversation with my son. The merchant's eyes glistened with unspoken tears. Because books can be rewritten, businesses can be rebuilt, money can be regained. But that moment with my son, it was irreplaceable. "How do you balance that?" he asked. "The need to provide and the need to be present." "It's not about balance," I said. "It's about integration." "What do you mean?" Most men think they have to choose to be a good provider or a good father, to build a successful business, or to build strong relationships, but that's a false choice. The best providers are often the most present fathers because they work with love and purpose, not fear and compulsion. And the most present fathers often become the most successful providers because they have something worth fighting for beyond mere accumulation. I opened to another passage in my writings. The greatest legacy a man can leave is not gold or property, but the character he shapes in his children. Your children don't need you working 18 hours a day to support them, I told him. They need you working with purpose, so you can be present for them. They don't need a father who gives them everything they want. They need a father who shows them how to want what truly matters. They don't need a provider who's always worried about money. They need a role model who creates value in the world while keeping peace in his soul. "But how do I start?" he asked. "Start tonight, go home, set aside your business worries for 1 hour, and simply be with them." "I need to tell you something," I said to the merchant, my voice growing more serious. "Something that may be hard to hear." He straightened, sensing the change in tone. "You are spiritually bankrupt." His face flushed with anger. "Rabbi, I may have problems, but I'm a good man. I pray regularly. I give to charity. I follow the laws." "I'm not questioning your goodness," I replied calmly. "I'm questioning your vitality." "What do you mean? Tell me, when was the last time you felt truly alive? Not successful, not accomplished, not validated. Alive." He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. "When was the last time you felt connected to something greater than your immediate concerns? When was the last time you felt awe, wonder, deep gratitude that had nothing to do with business profits?" His anger faded, replaced by confusion. I provide for my family. I contribute to my community. I'm building something meaningful." "Are you? Or are you just accumulating?" I stood and walked to my shelf, pulling down a volume of Psalms. King David wrote, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?" But this isn't only about eternal consequences. It's about what happens to a man who trades his spiritual vitality for material accumulation. I don't understand. Let me explain what I mean by spiritual bankruptcy. I sat down again, looking him directly in the eyes. A man becomes spiritually bankrupt when he stops being moved by beauty, when the sunset becomes just the end of another workday, when his children's laughter becomes background noise to his business thoughts, when his wife's love becomes just another service he receives. The merchant's face grew pale. He becomes spiritually bankrupt when work becomes his god, when his sense of worth depends entirely on his net worth, when he measures every experience by its profit potential. He becomes spiritually bankrupt when he loses the ability to feel joy that isn't tied to achievement, peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, love that isn't conditional on performance. "But I'm successful," he protested weakly. "Successful at what? Making money? Yes. Building a business? Yes. But are you successful at being human?" Here's what I've learned in my years as both physician and rabbi. A man can be highly functional and spiritually dead at the same time. He can be financially prosperous and emotionally bankrupt. He can be professionally respected and personally empty. And the tragedy is, he often doesn't realize what he's lost until it's nearly gone. I opened to a passage I had written in the Mishneh Torah. The ultimate purpose of all human activity must be to know God and serve Him with joy. Notice, I told him, it doesn't say the purpose is to accumulate wealth first and then serve God. It says, the purpose of all activity, even business activity, must be connection to the divine. You mean I should become a monk? No, I mean you should become a whole human being. There is a difference between being spiritual and being religious. Religion is following rules and rituals. Spirituality is being fully alive. A spiritual man approaches his work as sacred service, not just profit-making. A spiritual man sees his family as gifts to be cherished, not responsibilities to be managed. A spiritual man finds meaning in small moments, not just in great achievements. A spiritual man lives with gratitude, wonder, and purpose, regardless of external circumstances. The merchant was silent for a long time. "How do I get that back?" he finally asked. "I think I used to feel those things when I was younger, before I became so focused on success." "The same way you built your business," I replied. "One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of attention at a time." But where do I start? Start with wonder. Tonight, look at the stars. Really look. Remember what it feels like to be amazed. Before I go on with what I told the merchant, let me pause for a moment. If what you're hearing resonates with you, if these ancient principles are speaking to something deep in your soul, then I want you to do something important. Below this video, you'll see a red button that says subscribe. Click it now. And right beside it, there's a small bell icon. Click that too. Why am I asking you to do this? Because what I'm sharing with you isn't just entertainment. It isn't just information. It's transformation. These are principles that have guided wise men for thousands of years. Principles that can change your life if you apply them consistently. But consistency requires community. It requires reminders. It requires being part of something bigger than yourself. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel. You're joining a brotherhood of men committed to building prosperous lives without sacrificing their souls. Men who understand that true success is more than accumulation. Men who are learning to walk the middle path between ambition and contentment. So do it now. Subscribe and hit the bell, then we'll continue. Now back to the merchant. "Rabbi," he said, "everything you're saying makes sense, but I have to be honest. I've tried to change before. I've made resolutions. I've set new priorities, but I always end up falling back into the same patterns." "Of course you do," I replied, "because you've been trying to change your behavior without changing your understanding." "What do you mean?" You think discipline is forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do, but that's not discipline. That's self-violence. Then what is discipline? True discipline is aligning your actions with your deepest values. Let me show you what I mean. In the Mishneh Torah, I wrote about developing character traits. Here's the key takeaway. You don't become disciplined by fighting against your nature. You become disciplined by understanding your nature and working with it instead of against it. Give me an example. Right now, you're working 18 hours a day because you think that's what discipline demands. You're forcing yourself past exhaustion, ignoring your body's signals, sacrificing time with your family. Yes, but what if I told you true discipline would be working 10 focused hours instead of 18 scattered ones? I'd say that sounds too easy. Exactly. You think discipline has to be harsh. You think if something isn't painful, it isn't virtuous. But that's backwards. True discipline feels natural, not forced. It feels sustainable, not exhausting. It feels like coming home to yourself, not fighting against yourself. Here's why. When you are truly disciplined, you don't do things out of obligation. You do them because they align with who you want to become. Take exercise. Most men see it as punishment for eating, or as something they force themselves to do because they have to. But a truly disciplined man exercises because he loves the feeling of strength in his body, because he enjoys the mental clarity that comes from movement, because it connects him with his vitality. The action is the same. The motivation is completely different, and that difference in motivation makes all the difference in sustainability. So how do I develop that kind of discipline? Start by clarifying your deepest values, not what you think they should be, what they truly are. If you value your health, then caring for your body isn't discipline, it's love. If you value your family, then being present with them isn't sacrifice, it's joy. If you value meaningful work, then focusing your efforts isn't limitation, it's freedom. When your actions align with your values, discipline becomes natural. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. This was the secret the merchant was about to discover. Let me ask you something, I said to the merchant. What was your grandfather's profession? He was a blacksmith. He made tools, horseshoes, and simple metal work. Did he work 7 days a week? No. He observed the Sabbath strictly. He never worked from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Did he work from dawn until midnight? No, he mostly worked during the day. Evenings were for family, for prayer, and for rest. Did he seem stressed about money? The merchant thought for a moment. Actually, no. He always had enough. The family was fed, clothed, and sheltered. He seemed content. And yet you, who have accumulated more wealth than he could ever imagine, are miserable. Yes. Now, why do you think that is? The merchant struggled to find an answer, because your grandfather knew something you have forgotten. What? He knew the difference between work and life. I walked to the window and looked down at the busy street. Your grandfather worked to live. You lived to work. Your grandfather saw work as part of a whole life. You see everything else as interruptions to work. Your grandfather understood that a man needs rhythm, work and rest, effort and stillness, earning and spending, solitude and community. But somewhere between his generation and yours, we lost that wisdom. How? We started believing that more is always better, that faster is always superior, that busyness equals importance. We forgot that our ancestors discovered sustainable rhythms of life that had been tested over centuries. Take the Sabbath, for example. 1 day in 7, fully dedicated to rest, family, spiritual renewal, and community. Your grandfather didn't see it as a burden or inefficiency. He saw it as essential maintenance for his soul. But modern men think they can't afford to rest 1 day in 7, so they work 7 days a week and then wonder why they're exhausted, anxious, and empty. or consider the rhythm of the seasons. Your ancestors worked intensely during planting and harvest, then had slower periods for planning, repairing, and reflecting. But modern business demands the same intensity year-round. No seasons, no natural rhythms, just constant pressure. And we wonder why we burn out. I turned back to the merchant. Your ancestors also understood something else we've forgotten: the importance of legacy. Legacy? They thought in terms of generations, not quarters. They made decisions based on what would be good for their children and grandchildren, not just what maximized immediate profit. They built things to last: relationships, businesses, communities, traditions. But we have become a culture of short-term thinking, quick profits, instant gratification, immediate results, and we wonder why nothing feels meaningful anymore. From the Mishneh Torah I read, "Know him in all your ways, and he will direct your paths." Your grandfather acknowledged God in his work. His business wasn't separate from his faith, it was an expression of it. He saw honest craftsmanship as worship, fair trade as righteousness, providing for his family as sacred duty. But you've compartmentalized your life. Business is business, family is family, faith is faith, and nothing connects to anything else. That's why you feel fragmented, pulled in different directions, like you're living several lives instead of one integrated life. The merchant nodded slowly. So what's the solution? Go back to being a blacksmith? No. The solution is to rediscover the principles your grandfather lived by and apply them to your modern circumstances: rhythm, balance, legacy thinking, integration of faith and work, sustainable practices instead of unsustainable intensity. Your grandfather's life wasn't simpler because his work was simpler. His life was simpler because his principles were clearer. He knew what mattered and what didn't. He knew when to work and when to rest. He knew the difference between enough and too much. These aren't outdated ideas. They are timeless wisdom, and you can reclaim them. Now I'm going to teach you the 3 pillars that support all true prosperity, I said to the merchant. They aren't inventions of mine. They are principles I discovered by studying the lives of the most fulfilled men I've ever known, both rich and poor. What are they? I raised one finger. First pillar: purpose-driven productivity. Most men are busy, but few are purposeful. They work hard, but not meaningfully. They accumulate, but they don't create lasting value. Purpose-driven productivity means every significant effort in your life serves a purpose bigger than yourself. You don't just work to earn money. You work to solve problems, to serve others, to build something meaningful. You don't just accumulate to have more. You accumulate so you can serve more, give more, create more positive impact. When your productivity serves a purpose beyond profit, work becomes energizing instead of exhausting. I raised a second finger. Second pillar: relational wealth. Most successful men don't have real relationships. They have networks, but not friendships. They have contacts, but not connections. They have transactions, but not relationships. True prosperity includes people who know you, love you, and support you for who you are, not for what you can do for them. Your wife should be your best friend, not just your domestic partner. Your children should enjoy your presence, not just benefit from your provision. Your community should be enriched by your participation, not just by your donations. I raised a third finger. Third pillar: spiritual vitality. This is what most men neglect completely. They build external success while their inner life withers. Spiritual vitality means you are connected to something greater than yourself. You carry a sense of meaning that transcends your immediate circumstances. You feel gratitude, wonder, and peace, regardless of external pressures. From the Mishneh Torah, I quoted, "The ultimate purpose of all human wisdom and all human action is to know the Creator and serve Him with integrity of heart." The merchant was taking it in deeply. These 3 pillars support each other. I continued. Purpose-driven productivity gives you the energy to build strong relationships. Strong relationships give you the emotional foundation for spiritual growth. Spiritual vitality gives you the wisdom for truly purposeful work. But here's what happens to most men. They focus only on productivity. They neglect relationships and spirituality. And over time, even their productivity collapses because it has no foundation. What you're describing sounds impossible, said the merchant. How can I rebuild my whole life? You don't, I replied. You transform it, one choice at a time. What was your first choice? To tell the truth to my wife. His eyes widened. I went home that night and told Fatima everything, that I was unhappy despite our success, that I had worked so hard to provide for the family that I had forgotten how to be part of it. How did she respond? She cried, not out of sadness, but relief. She said she'd been watching me disappear for years and didn't know how to reach me. So what happened? We made a covenant, not just with each other, but with God. We decided the prosperity of our family would be measured by our joy, not just by our wealth. Give me details. I restructured my entire business model. Instead of personally managing every transaction, I trained trusted advisors. Instead of being involved in every decision, I built systems that worked without my constant supervision. Did you lose money? At first, yes. A few deals fell through. Some opportunities slipped away. But within 6 months, something extraordinary happened. What? The business became more profitable than before. How is that possible? Because I was making better decisions. When you're not exhausted, not stressed, not distracted by family problems, your judgment improves dramatically. On top of that, my reputation shifted. Word spread that I was a merchant who kept his word, honored commitments, and treated people fairly. That attracted higher quality partners and clients. The merchant leaned in, intensely curious. But the deepest change wasn't in the business. It was in my family. My sons, once distant and rebellious, began to seek my advice. My daughter, once withdrawn and quiet, became affectionate and open. And my wife fell in love with me again, not with what I could provide, but with who I was becoming. How long did this transformation take? The external changes took about a year, but the inner transformation began immediately the night we had that conversation. I paused and looked directly at him, because transformation doesn't start with changing your circumstances. It starts with changing your understanding. That night I realized something I had never understood before. I'd been chasing the shadow of prosperity instead of prosperity itself. What do you mean? I thought prosperity meant having enough money, so I'd never worry about money again. But that's impossible. No amount of money erases financial worry if your security depends on external circumstances. True prosperity is having enough inner resources to be at peace, no matter the external circumstances. I thought success meant building something impressive that others would admire, but that's exhausting. You become a slave to the opinions of others. True success is building something meaningful that serves others and fulfills your purpose. I thought happiness was the reward you receive once everything finally goes right, but that day never comes. There are always new problems, new challenges, new uncertainties. True happiness is the foundation from which you face problems, challenges, and uncertainty. So what changed in your daily life? Everything and nothing. I still worked hard, but with purpose instead of frenzy. I still sought profit, but not at the expense of everything that mattered. I still faced challenges, but with strength instead of anxiety. The outer structure of my life looked similar, but the inner experience was completely transformed. That's what I mean by the middle way. You don't abandon success, you redefine it. But Rabbi, the merchant said, my life is already set. I have obligations, commitments, people who depend on me. I can't just rebuild everything. I'm not asking you to rebuild everything, I replied. I'm asking you to rebuild your relationship with everything. I don't understand the difference. Let me give you an example. You work 18 hours a day. You see that as an unbearable burden, right? Yes. But what if I told you that inside those 18 hours, there are probably only 6 hours of truly essential work? He looked skeptical. The rest is repetitive work, checking and rechecking things that don't need checking, sitting through meetings that go nowhere, solving problems that would solve themselves if you left them alone. You're saying I could work less without losing anything important. I'm saying you could work more effectively, getting the same results with less time and stress. But how do I know what's essential? By applying what I call the principle of spiritual discernment. From the Mishneh Torah I read, acknowledge him in all your ways and he will make your path straight. And that means before making any decision about business, family, or personal time, you pause and ask yourself, what would serve the greater good here? Not what would make the most money, not what would avoid the most conflict, not what would require the least effort, what would serve the greater good. Give me a practical example. You get a message from a business partner about a minor issue. Your normal reaction would be to drop everything and fix it right away, correct? Yes. But if you pause and ask, what would serve the greater good, you might realize the issue isn't urgent. It can wait until business hours. The greater good in that moment might be finishing dinner with your family. Or imagine you're invited to a potentially lucrative business meeting, but it means missing your daughter's school performance. Your automatic response might be to accept the meeting because business comes first. But if you ask, what would serve the greater good, you may realize that missing yet another family milestone would damage something irreplaceable, while this business opportunity is replaceable. It sounds like you're asking me to choose family over business. No, I'm asking you to choose wisdom over reactivity. Sometimes the greater good will be the business choice. Sometimes it will be the family choice. Sometimes it will be your personal health. But whatever choice you make, it comes from wisdom, not compulsion, from purpose, not pressure, from your values instead of your fears. The merchant sat quietly for a moment. How do I develop that kind of discernment? Practice. Every day, many times a day, pause before you act and ask yourself, what would serve the greater good here? At first, you won't know. Your mind will be so used to reactive patterns that you'll struggle even to grasp the question. But slowly, you'll develop an inner compass that guides you toward choices aligned with your deepest values. That's what I mean by finding peace in the storm of modern life. The storm continues. There will always be pressures, demands, urgent situations. But you're no longer at the mercy of the storm. You navigate it guided by principles instead of panic. You respond with strength instead of reacting from weakness. You make decisions based on wisdom, not on who shouted loudest or what seemed most urgent. This single practice, pausing to ask what would serve the greater good, will transform your entire relationship with success, family, and peace. Give me something specific I can start tomorrow, the merchant said. A practice, one thing that will begin this transformation immediately. I thought for a moment, then smiled. Every morning when you wake up, before checking any messages or thinking about business, spend 10 minutes answering 3 questions. What questions? First, what am I grateful for today? Not what you hope will happen, not what you fear. What genuinely makes you feel grateful right now? Your health, if you have it. Your family, if they are well. Your opportunities, if they exist. Your basic needs being met. This is not positive thinking. This is recognition of reality. Most men begin the day focused on what's wrong, what's missing, what needs fixing. That creates a mindset of scarcity and anxiety. But when you begin with gratitude, you begin with abundance and peace. Second question, what truly matters today? not what's urgent, not what others think is important, what truly matters according to your deepest values. Maybe it's closing an important deal. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with your wife. Maybe it's caring for your health. Usually it's one or two things at most. This question helps you separate what matters from what's just noise. Third question, how can I serve something greater than myself today? This ties your daily actions to your deeper purpose. Maybe you serve your family by being fully present at dinner. Maybe you serve your community by treating your employees fairly. Maybe you serve God by approaching your work as a sacred service. When you serve something greater than yourself, work becomes meaningful instead of merely profitable. The merchant nodded. These 3 questions, 10 minutes. At first, maybe 15. Over time, 5 minutes will be enough. But those few minutes will transform your entire day. Instead of starting in reactive mode, answering whoever contacted you first, handling whatever crisis seems most urgent, you will start in proactive mode. You will know what you're grateful for, what truly matters, and how your day serves your purpose. Everything else becomes secondary. But what about all the urgent things that come up during the day? They'll still come, but you'll deal with them differently. When you're grounded in gratitude, real priorities, and meaningful purpose, urgent things don't control you. You can address them when appropriate, without being enslaved by them. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I received an urgent message from a patient's family. A medical emergency, immediate attention. That was truly urgent and important. I responded right away. But I also received an urgent message from a business partner about a contract detail that could easily wait until next week. Because I began my day clear about what really mattered, I could distinguish between real urgency and manufactured urgency. I handled the medical emergency immediately. I scheduled time next week for the business issue. This is the power of starting the day with intentionality instead of reactivity. From the Mishneh Torah, I quoted, "A person should plan his activities and then act accordingly." Planning doesn't mean controlling every detail. It means facing your day with purpose instead of just reacting to whatever happens. The merchant looked energized. I can do that. 3 questions every morning. But let me warn you, I said, the first week will be hard. Why? Because you're shifting from a lifetime habit of reactivity to a life of intentionality. Your mind will resist. It will tell you these questions are a waste of time, that you need to check messages immediately, that business cannot wait. That's just old programming. Ignore it. Commit to this practice for 30 days. After 30 days, you won't want to start your day any other way. Because you'll discover something wonderful. When you begin with gratitude, clarity, and purpose, everything else becomes easier. Let me tell you why most men never find lasting happiness, I said to the merchant. They get the equation backwards. What do you mean? They think the equation is success, security, happiness. Work hard, achieve success, gain security, and finally be happy. But that equation never works. Do you know why? He shook his head. Because success without happiness is only sophisticated misery, and security without peace is only comfortable anxiety. The true equation is happiness, success, security. Begin with contentment and gratitude. That gives you the energy and clarity to achieve genuine success. Success built on happiness creates real security. But Rabbi, how can I be happy if I don't yet have what I want? Perfect question. This is exactly where most men get stuck. You think happiness depends on getting what you want. But what if I told you that wanting what you have is a far more reliable path to happiness? That sounds like giving up on ambition. Not at all. Let me show you the difference. Right now, you want a bigger house, more gold, expanded trade routes, correct? Yes. And you think you'll be happy when you get those things. Correct. But what happened when you bought your current house? Your current wealth, your current business success? He was silent for a moment. I was excited for a while. Then I started wanting the next thing. Exactly. Because happiness that depends on getting what you want is temporary. As soon as you get what you wanted, you want something else. That creates what I call the treadmill of satisfaction. You run faster and faster, but never arrive anywhere. So what's the alternative? Learning to want what you have while you work for what you desire. I don't understand. You can pursue greater goals while still being genuinely grateful for today's blessings. You can work for future success while finding meaning in present opportunities. You can build tomorrow while being fully alive today. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, "Who is rich? He who rejoices in his portion." That doesn't mean being satisfied with mediocrity. It means being satisfied with the process of building something meaningful. Let me give you a practical example. You're working to expand your trade routes to India. That's a worthy goal. But today, you already have successful routes to Egypt and Spain. Most men focus entirely on what they don't yet have, India. They grow frustrated, impatient, and unhappy until they reach that goal. But a wise man appreciates Egypt and Spain while working toward India. He finds satisfaction in current success while building future success. This creates an entirely different experience of life. Instead of being unhappy until reaching your goals, you are content while reaching them. Instead of sacrificing present happiness for future success, you build future success on a foundation of present happiness. But doesn't that make you less motivated? Quite the opposite. When you're happy and grateful, you have more energy for challenging goals. When you're frustrated and anxious, you waste energy on worry and stress. Happy people are more creative, more persistent, more resilient, and more attractive to others. That's why happiness leads to success, and not the other way around. The merchant was deeply absorbing this. So you're saying I should be happy with my current life? I'm saying you should be happy in your current life while improving your current life. Happiness and ambition are not opposites. They are partners. When they work together, you gain sustainable success instead of exhausting striving. You gain lasting satisfaction instead of temporary excitement. You gain a life worth living while building achievements worth having. That's what I mean by getting the happiness equation right. Most men chase happiness as a reward for success, but wise men use happiness as the fuel for success. The candle was almost burned out. The merchant and I had been speaking for hours. "Rabbi," he said, "everything you've shared makes sense, but I need to be honest, I'm afraid." Afraid of what? Afraid that if I change, if I slow down, if I begin to prioritize family, rest and meaning, I'll lose everything I've built. Afraid my competitors will overtake me. Afraid my business will suffer. Afraid I'll end up poor and regretful. I nodded. That's the fear that keeps most men trapped in misery, even when they know there's a better way. I leaned forward. Let me tell you the final truth. The most important thing I've learned in all my years as a physician, scholar, and counselor to kings and peasants alike. What is it? You're not afraid of losing your business. You're afraid of discovering who you are without your business. He sat back as if I had struck him. Most men define themselves by what they do, not by who they are. Take away their work, their achievements, their status, and they feel they've disappeared. But that is an illusion. A dangerous illusion that keeps you enslaved to external validation. Who are you really? I am a successful merchant. No, that's what you do. Who are you? He struggled with the question. I am a provider for my family. That's a role you play. Who are you? Long silence. I don't know, he whispered. And that, I said gently, is why you work 18 hours a day. Because you're running from that not knowing. You think if you accumulate enough, achieve enough, impress enough people, you will finally know who you are. But it doesn't work, because your identity is not something you earn or acquire. It's something you discover and develop. How do I discover it? By spending time with yourself without distractions. By asking deeper questions than, how can I make more money? Questions like, what brings me genuine joy? What am I naturally good at? How can I contribute something meaningful to the world? What would I do if I weren't afraid? By connecting with something greater than your immediate concerns, whether that's God, purpose, service, or love. I opened to the final passage I wanted to share. The purpose of all human effort must be to know and serve the Creator with integrity of heart, mind, and strength. This doesn't mean becoming religious in the narrow sense. It means becoming fully human, living with purpose instead of just ambition, building relationships instead of just transactions, creating meaning instead of just wealth, serving something eternal instead of merely something temporary. The merchant was silent for a long time. Finally, and what if I try and fail? What if I discover I'm not who I thought I was? Then you will discover who you really are, and that will be the beginning of true success. True success is not impressing others. It is becoming authentic with yourself. True wealth is not having more than you need. It is needing less than you have. True security is not controlling every circumstance. It is being at peace regardless of circumstances. And true happiness is not getting everything you want. It is cherishing everything you have while working toward what you are called to become. I rose and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over Cairo. The night is ending, I said. But for you, something new is beginning. Will you help me, he asked. I already have, by showing you that you have everything you need to begin. The question now is, what will you choose? Will you choose the middle way? Will you choose integration over fragmentation? Will you choose to be fully alive instead of merely successful? The choice is yours. It always has been. That merchant left my house as the sun rose over Cairo, but he did not leave the same man who had climbed my stairs in the darkness. Within 6 months, his life was transformed. Not because his circumstances changed drastically, but because he changed his relationship to his circumstances. He still ran a successful business, but he no longer let the business run him. He still pursued profit, but he no longer sacrificed everything meaningful in the name of profit. He still worked hard, but he worked with strength, not with desperation. And now, as I speak to you across the centuries, I want you to know, you have the same choice he had. The same choice every man has at some point in life. You can continue living as you have been, busy, stressed, accumulating but not appreciating, successful but not satisfied. Or you can choose the middle way. The way of prosperity without obsession, success without slavery, achievement without anxiety, wealth without workaholism. It's not about abandoning ambition. It's about redirecting ambition toward what truly matters. It's not about working less. It's about working with more purpose. It's not about wanting less. It's about appreciating more. Let me be direct with you. If you are watching this video, you are likely where that merchant was when he climbed my stairs. Successful by external measures, but empty by internal ones. Providing for your family's needs, but not being present with them. Building wealth, but losing your health. Accumulating possessions, but not creating meaning. And deep down, you know this is unsustainable. You know you cannot keep working 18-hour days forever. You know you cannot keep sacrificing your relationships for your career forever. You know you cannot keep postponing happiness forever. The question is, what will you do about it? Here's what I recommend. Tomorrow morning, begin with the 3 questions I gave you. What am I grateful for today? What truly matters today? How can I serve something greater than myself today? Then, once this week, have an honest conversation with someone who matters to you about what is really going on in your life, not the success story, The real story, the fears, the fatigue, the sense of something missing even though you have so much. Finally, make one small change that moves you toward the middle way. Maybe it's leaving work an hour early to have dinner with your family. Maybe it's taking one true day of rest each week. Maybe it's saying no to a draining commitment so you can say yes to something that restores you. Small changes applied consistently create massive transformations. The merchant I met that night in Cairo did not transform his life overnight, but he began. And beginning is everything. You have everything you need to begin. The wisdom has been shared, the principles explained, the path illuminated. The only question that remains is, will you walk it? Will you choose the middle way between extremes? Will you choose integration over fragmentation? Will you choose to live fully instead of merely succeed? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Now, if you want to keep learning from the wisdom of our ancestors, if you want more guidance on how to build a truly prosperous life, I want you to do something important. Below this video, you'll see a red button that says subscribe. Click it now, and right beside it there's a little bell icon, the notification bell. Click that too, so you'll know immediately when I share the next teaching. These are not just videos, they are a path to the life you truly long to live. A life of meaning, prosperity, and peace. Subscribe now, and let's continue this journey together. The wisdom of the ages is waiting for you. The only question is, are you ready to receive it?